Errol is a boy from a family gifted in both magic and swordsmanship, but he is labeled as classless. However, Errol believes he can endure and soon discovers that he is the strongest mage in the world, possessing an extraordinary power that will amaze everyone. The story begins in a quiet and cozy village, where in one of the houses a family is eagerly awaiting to find out which class their son will be blessed with. Even though he himself doesn't seem as excited as the others, his little sister is so happy that she's sure her brother Errol will get the most powerful class. The mother comments that the boy will then become very popular among the girls, but the little girl, in a daze, responds that Errol is too young to be thinking about such things. The father points out that he was surrounded by kittens when he was his age, but none of that seemed to impress his son, who stayed away from the conversation. Although this issue of being graced with a class was also on his mind, in this world, God blesses every human being with a class when he reaches the age of 10. Then, the skills necessary to perform their role are passed on to that person, which can range from a powerful wizard to a simple baker. After the family gathering, the moment finally arrives when the blessing ritual begins, and one of the community's religious figures takes the lead in the process in the city temple, in front of a statue of a goddess. Soon the first child is called to the stage. Then the religious man places the scepter on the boy's forehead and feels the power of the flames in him, as well as the smell of iron and hammer, and thus the boy becomes a blacksmith. As time passed and the children presented themselves to receive their classes, Ariel's sister took pride in the bloodline to which they belonged, which would certainly influence the blessing and make her brother one of the powerful class. When Ariel is called, everyone present is eager to know the future of the village's most famous couple, known as representatives of very advanced classes, the Sword Princess Farah and the Archmage Leon. On stage, the religious man asks Errol to close his eyes so he can feel the goddess's blessing. However, the boy feels absolutely nothing, as does the person responsible for the ritual. The public begins to become anxious in the face of this lack of response. So after analyzing this rare case, the religious man comes to the conclusion that Errol is a classless child. The sister is outraged and refuses to believe this is the truth, just as the parents are very frustrated. After this event, Ariel is back at home, training in the backyard with a sword, and being comforted by his parents that since they will work after they retire, then the boy does not need to worry about getting a job. Errol insists that he doesn't want to be a burden to his parents. Then the little sister, pretending to be the older sister, arrives to say that she will help the guy as she always did. Tired of this talk, where he always seems like the poor guy, Ariel gathers the family together to make one thing very clear. He doesn't care about this whole classless thing. After all, he studied fencing with his mother since he was little, and even if he didn't gain any classes, he can still wield a sword and his hard work will pay off someday. The mother is moved by the boy's maturity at such a young age, and his father is confident that Errol can turn fate in his favor when he grows up, just like the little girl always knew her big brother was the best. Tired of being treated this way, Ariel leaves to continue his practice at the training ground. Arriving there, two boys simulated a duel where both demonstrated impressive sword technique. According to them, having a class is amazing because they could feel the strength flowing from within their bodies. When Errol shows up, the duo recognizes him as being out of ritual class and asks what he's doing there. Errol explains that he just came to train like anyone else. Then one of the boys tells the advantage that they, as sword shins, don't need to train and just come to the training ground to check their skills. To demonstrate what he's talking about, the boy invites his partner to start the duel again. Then the duo once again displays that strength that Errol never had and never will. With each blow they struck, the heavy sound of air along with the collision of swords suggested that they were two powerful 27-year-old barbarians from Gladiando. Watching the fight, Ariel ponders that the first technique a swordsman learns is basic fencing, which in itself is enough to make these two boys quite capable fighters. However, the observer didn't want to just watch, so he called any of the boys to train with him. The cockier of the two gives a mocking laugh and points out that the intruder doesn't stand a chance, but he's sure he'll give in, angry at the guy's certainty. The challenged person first asks if the challenger has divine protection, even if he is classless, which Ariel confirms without much enthusiasm. Divine protection is another blessing granted by the goddess, but unlike classes, absolutely everyone has the right to receive this gift as soon as they are born. This protection is like an invisible web that wraps around the body and absorbs damage. But of course, if you take too much of a hit, you'll end up feeling the pain. This way, the cocky guy can fight without fear of taking his rival to the grave. However, Ariel asks that the opponent also be prepared to burn his tongue. This provocation makes the brat even angrier, and this anger makes him move forward without the dispute even formally beginning. Errol thinks quickly and not only blocks the blow, but also spins his sword to open his opponent's guard, leaving the boy completely furious. Driven by the force of hatred, the suspect attempts another sword strike, but is again stopped by his opponent's block. Next, the fight is shown to be completely controlled by Errol, and since he doesn't want to let this go, Marenta even calls his colleague to join his rival, a request that he promptly fulfilled. Errol escapes a cowardly attack from behind, but he doesn't complain, as he loves challenges. And having two opponents of the same age makes this training very beneficial, since he was always being scolded by his mother during training at home. At this point, Moreto begins to complain that his partner didn't attack correctly, making Ariel wonder if these classy people can't learn to work as a team. Because of the anarchic way they fight, They might even be easy prey. Convinced of this, Ariel advances and knocks Bettina out of the duo with a blow to the chin. Now all that's left is the alpha of the duo, the final boss, who threatens his opponent with words. But when it was time to really show it, he tripped over his own companion and was left completely exposed to a blow to the back of the neck, which was the flat part of the blade without using the cutting part. Otherwise, the worst would happen, as if the shame of having lost in those conditions wasn't enough. The duo still grumbles that RA overtook them, and since they didn't accept defeat, the three agree to a rematch. However, another boy arrives at the training camp and tells the losers to stop this nonsense. After all, on a real battlefield, no enemy will care about the crying of these two clowns. The cocky one of the duo immediately insults the guy, but his colleague tells him to calm down, seeing as this redhead is a tough guy. That said, the redhead approaches Arl and recognizes him as the son of Farah, the princess of the sword, since the skill he has in fencing could only have been inherited by that warrior. Either way, he tells this victory not to go to the boy's head, so challenge him to a duel to show this classless man what a true swordsman is capable of. Bettina tells Morento that this redhead has some relationship with the head of the guard and he himself. Confirms that Captain Evans is his father. Hearing that name, Ariel remembers that Evans is the guy who once went to his house to call his mother to hunt demons. However, he looks nothing like his son, as the adopted son had a much more rigid and suffering appearance. Revo is angry at having his father mentioned, and makes it clear that the captain is not only a master of the sword, but also a leader respected by all. Still, the son doesn't understand how Ariel's mother can be considered the #1 Zin sword in the village. Unconvinced, he asks if Ariel agrees with this, and he confirms that his mother is literally the most powerful person in the village. Redhead then remembers that children inherit their parents' talent, and that's why he's going to beat up this brat and prove that his family is much stronger than his. Furthermore, he had already been using the sword for over a year and had already learned intermediate techniques, so he would definitely defeat this brat. Therefore, as he has shown from the beginning, the area is not one to shy away from a fight, so the two immediately begin a dispute. This fight clearly demonstrates that it is a level above the previous one. This doesn't just impress the two previous rivals, but also the current challenger, who, although he admits that this fight is more balanced than he imagined, has a card up his sleeve for the crucial moment. In turn, Ariel analyzes that the anger that the opponent is feeling is making him strike in a more sloppy way, which can be a disadvantage. Taking advantage of this, Ariel quickly crouches after defending a spear strike or a thrust strike with the opponent's guard open. However, the redhead responds quickly with his twin blade slash skill. On reflex, Ariel defends himself from the first, but the second cut hits his divine protection. The injured boy smothers the injured boy with his hand. Unable to understand how his rival managed to land 2 blows at once, while the redhead takes advantage, saying that someone without class could never defend against such a technique. Either way, he recognizes that the kid has balls to accept this challenge. Days later, Ariel is woken up by the most annoying alarm clock on the face of the earth, which in this case is his sister. He accidentally headbutted the poor girl as he stood up, which ended up being an unintentional act of revenge. During breakfast, she asks her little brother to stop working out so hard, as one day she will create a world where the poor guy can live comfortably. Hearing this, Ariel gives a hearty laugh and says goodbye to her family to go to training. With his departure, his sister expresses concern that Ariel is staying late, training every day after coming home exhausted from the beating he took. However, to calm the child's mind, Farah takes the little girl to a chest, where several swords that were broken by Ariel during her training were stored. In other words, the guy knows how to handle himself. Even calmer, the boy's sister promises to make the world a better place for him. Meanwhile, Ariel focuses on her daily training and shows that she has learned the double blade attack, as she only let herself be hit so she could assimilate this technique. Speaking of which, a blow appears from Tokaya to ambush the human, but Arel finishes off the creature with this very ability. However, a deep, sinister roar echoes from within the forest, and indicates that another, much more serious challenge lurks among the trees. Fearing that the village would be attacked, Ariel runs to alert the guard. However, a child's desperate cry makes him run into the woods. When he reached the injured person, it was none other than Redhead, who challenged him days ago. And on the other side was a hobby goblin, a type of creature that never appears around these parts. Besides him, larger goblins were dead, near the Redhead's training platform, which indicates that he killed the monsters while training. Given the enemy's size, Ariel believes he needs to focus more on his base than on his wrist movement, as timing will be crucial to hitting this giant. With this strategy in mind, Ariel adjusts her footwork and delivers the twin blade strike at just the right time. That's how it will be at RB Coblin. After that, seeing that the Redhead's holy water broke on the ground, the boy gives his own to the injured man to regenerate his divine protection. When drinking the water, the Redhead gets better quickly. Just a question how without the classic yellowish twin blades. Then the boy calmly explains that he had to train a lot to develop such a complex technique. Furthermore, he notes that he noticed how Red used this move several times in their fight and was beaten in that way that Ariel was able to learn later. In fact, he wants a rematch, which his rival accepts because he was saved. Since that way, the two don't waste time and go to the exchange right there. Already leaving, the two use the twin blade strike at the same time, But Errol's power had one more cut. Then, when two cuts from each fighter absorbed each other by colliding, the latter crossed the field and hit the target squarely. The redhead remembers that the name of the skill is twin blades and not trembling. So, Errol explains that there is no need to get caught up in these limiting details, as the important thing is to model a certain technique to better serve in moments of battle. The redhead doesn't accept any lesson from someone without class, so he raises his sword once more, keeping in mind that he learned fencing from his father, Captain Ivans, so he can't lose under any circumstances, especially to a kid who hasn't even received a class from the goddess. Be that as it may, one thing is certain. You need to be careful against this opponent. However, even though he promised to be careful of the third cut from the twin blade, Redhead falls under the same attack and loses the duel. He asks if Ariel went easy on him in the last fight, since he's visibly much faster than before. However, Ariel explains that it was thanks to his rival that he saw his limitations and evolved to overcome the weaknesses that led to his last defeat. Days later, during an evening tea, he will tell the family that Evans's son went to Brazia today, a place called the City of Swords, where Faraja was part of the local guild before getting married. Errol feels like going to a place like this, but wonders how far someone without class could go. Wherever it is, he'd like to find out. This will only be possible if he tries. This concludes today's episode of this anime. Wait for us in the upcoming episodes! If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell to receive all that is new. 5 whole years pass by since that day, and our final decides to leave on a journey to Brea, the kingdom known for its swordsmanship. Both his mother as well as Captain Evans got their training from Brea, and Errol wants to be the best of the best, just like them. On his way, he is accompanied by a couple of strangers, 2 of them being swordsmen of a high caliber. The guy has the barbarian class, whereas the woman is known for her dual-wielding class. Both of them want to hone their skills in Brescia as well, but they can't seem to get along and are always at each other's throat. The cart driver tells them to settle down as all of them are going to the same location, but the man is too much of a misogynist and wants to send the woman back to the kitchen. Before they can argue more, however, the cart driver shouts at them to get their swords ready as they have got trouble. Errol calmly looks up and spots a horde of orcs alongside their huge leader blocking their way with no intentions of letting them leave with their lives. 2 of the kids in the cart get scared and ask the barbarian guy to save them, but the barbarian, true to her name, is a total jerk and a coward who claims that he is not willing to put his life on the line for someone else and jumps from the cart before running away. The woman follows him, claiming that everyone is on their own in this world. The cart driver gets worried, wondering whether he can outrun the horde with his cart and the passengers. But before he could do anything, Errol climbs down the cart without a single word and starts moving towards the monsters. The driver tells him to back off and run for his life, but Errol simply ignores him before dashing towards the first orc and stabbing it in the heart. The driver is shocked by his incredible speed and accuracy, while Errol simply uses instant transmission and keeps disappearing and appearing in front of the orc, taking them down one by one. Unfortunately, though, he gets surrounded by a bunch of orcs on all sides, which means that he can't really use his dash skill anymore. But to the driver's surprise, Errol uses a legendary trick known as the blade dance, where he spins around like an idiot, cutting everyone down all at once. The cart driver doesn't understand how Errol can use that skill, since it is only used by the swordsman with the sword princess class, and they are always women. Errol, however, isn't bound by the gender norms as he wants to be the part of the LGHDTV community. So, he runs towards the orc leader, dodging its attack expertly before jumping on top of him and burying his sword deep within the orc's skull, killing it immediately. He finally returns back towards the shock driver and tells him to continue the journey to Brea. While one of the kids asks what class he belongs to, he simply replies that he doesn't have any class, which completely shocks everyone. He remembers how 5 years ago, when he showed his mother the new twin blade skill he learned, she thought that she was imagining things. But when Errol told her that he is training to replicate any skill he sees, she is beyond overjoyed and promised to teach him all of the skills used by the sword princess class. Back in the present, he is woken up by the driver who tells him that they have reached Bresta, the land of swords. Errol climbs down the cart and witnesses the town center flooded by people with swords strapped to their waists. Errol turns towards the driver and asks whether he is an advanced level swordsman. At first, the driver claims that he is just a cart driver, but Errol knows that only good swordsmen can identify the moves he was pulling on the spot. The cart driver admits that he is from the Holy Knights class, which is a pretty good class, but he gets bored of fighting so much, so he prefers to sometimes kick back and relax while pretending to be a normal driver. The Holy Knight realizes that this is probably Errol's first time in the city and tells him that he needs to find a guild for himself first, as without a guild, he won't be able to fight in any tournaments. And in this city, fighting and winning the turns is the main way swordsmen prove their worth and earn money. Errol replies that he doesn't care about the money, but he wants to fight the strongest swordsman this place has to offer him. The driver tells him to be wary of toxic corporate guilds, as they can suck your soul and not in a good way. With that, the driver turns back and leaves while Errol moves into the city, looking at all the different people announcing their guilds, hiring people and swordsmen getting in line to try their luck for the better guilds. On the way, he ends up bumping into a blonde lowly who immediately latches onto him like Headless, telling him that she is the member of a famous guild and wants him to join them. Errol is immediately wary of her since she seems very desperate for members, so he refuses. The lowly, however, doesn't leave him alone and keeps pestering him to join their guild again and again. But Errol's is not a simp and keeps refusing. He asks her, what is the strongest guild here, and begrudgingly replies that the Shadowblade Guild is one of the strongest right now, since it has 8 class of swordsmen. He asks her for the directions, and immediately moves towards the guild. He gets stopped on the way by the guard who directs him towards the reception for the test. In the reception, he finds a huge line of budding swordsmen willing to try their luck to enter the famous guild, which excites Errol as well, who wonders what kind of amazing people he would have to fight against. But when his chance comes to register, the receptionist laughs at him for being a classless loser, claiming that only people with an advanced swordsman class can apply for the guild trials. Errol claims that he is sure he can pass their trial, but the receptionist refuses to register him. Saddened by this, he decides to leave when he spots 3 of the ranked swordsmen entering the hall, who are immediately treated like celebrities. He doesn't really care much about the theatrics, though, and immediately turns towards other guilds. But one by one, he gets rejected by all of them on the basis of him not having a class. Tired, he goes back into the city, taking out the letter his mother gave him and told him to find her old guild, since they will surely help her find something. He wonders whether his mom knew that he would have this much trouble, but he is thankful nonetheless. Before he can even read the letter, though, the blonde, lowly latches onto him once again, claiming that they are still ready to take him in. But Errol refuses again. She literally starts begging him to join the guild, telling him to do it as a charity, and points at a beautiful guild house, claiming that it's her guild. This surprises Errol a little, but the lowly replies that their guild, known as the Dragon Fang, used to be the best in the country for a very long time. But lately it's gone to Quaker, and currently they are the weakest. But she wants to bring it back up to its former glory. The name Dragon Fang suddenly rings a bell as he remembers that his mom once told him about the leader of her guild, who was a dual-wielding swordsman who named the guild Dragon Fang after his special move. He quickly takes out the letter to look for the name, and it in fact is the guild that his mom was talking about. He decides to go in with her, which makes her very happy. But the moment they enter the room, he finds an old drunk man with only one arm on the couch. The man tells Errol to go somewhere else since this guild is doomed and walks off, while the lowly tells him that he is her father, who used to be the second best swordsman of the city, but ever since losing his arm, he has never been the same. Errol, however, surprises her by saying that he wants to join the guild. This makes the lowly really happy, and she quickly drafts up an agreement which Errol fills up and hands it back to her. She reads it before asking why he left the class column blank. That's when Errol replies that it's because he has no class. Bali snaps and gets a sword out, claiming that she thought he might be an advanced class swordsman since he was acting so hard to get. But before she could say any more, the door opens and a red-haired beauty named Rai enters the room. The lowly immediately runs towards her, crying that this classless idiot deceived her into joining the guild. This gets Ray's immediate attention, and she looks towards Errol, claiming that she never thought she would see him here. Errol is confused and asks how she knows him, and Ray looks surprised, claiming that they were from the same village and trained together. That still doesn't ring a bell. But finally, he realizes that the red-haired boy that he fought so many times before was actually not a boy, but a girl. The lowly knows about the story as well, and asks Ray whether this is the classless guy who defeated her when she was young, as she always thought that the story was a myth. Rai, however, is still stuck on that loss and challenges Errol to a match immediately. The fight starts, and Rai immediately uses the twin slash attack, which Errol thinks he can counter. But to his surprise, Ray's slashes blast through his own and hit him straight in the chest. This confuses him, but Rai reveals that she has the power swordsman class, which is why she is able to use a sword that is 5 times heavier than a normal sword, which means that she has 5 times the power in each sword strike. Errol is impressed by the fact that she has still retained her speed even after using a heavier sword, but that speed is nothing in front of his own speed. The next time she attacks, he creates an after image of himself which distracts Rai while he appears behind her and hits her in the back. Ray is confused and tries again, but the result is the same. She can't believe that Errol is using a technique which is only used by the most advanced level swordsmen, while Errol realizes that she is too tanky to take down with his normal attacks. Rai also knows this and tries to end the fight with her heavy blows, but Errol uses his mother's signature counter, which brings Rai to her knees, and the fight is over just like that. With that, the Lai's demeanor changes completely, and she welcomes him once again to their guild and tells him that their guild is in crippling debt right now. To get out of debt, they will have to enter the tournaments and fight as a 3-man group against other guilds who will have all 5 members in a team. Errol, however, is excited at the prospect of fighting against strong opponents and looks forward for the opportunity to hone his skills even more. But that's where this video ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Takeru Kamishiro, your average office dude, until he gets yanked into a wild world of swords and magic, super strength, crazy magic, treasure hunting cheat skill. You bet. Let the epic adventure adventure begins, and our story begins with a young man named Takeru, who tells us that his life is utterly boring and routine. It's the same work, the same return home. And while this ordinary life is supposed to be comfortable, a part of him longs for something different. Then, suddenly, something strange happens to him. He finds himself sitting at a table across from a person who introduces himself as the supervisor of the solar system, a being closer to an alien. Using his magic, this being conjures a planet called Madius, and explains that no matter how much he tinkers with this planet, things never go as planned, and civilizations repeatedly collapse. Therefore, he must now personally intervene to save the planet, and he has chosen Takeru to make that change. Takeru is baffled and asks how this is possible. The young man informs him that he is already dead and will be sent to the planet Madius to live again. He assures Takeru that he won't send him empty-handed and will provide him with gifts, such as the ability to use magic. Takeru becomes very excited and requests two things: to befriend a cute girl and to enhance his exploration skills. The young man agrees, and also adds a skill for gathering and selling materials for profit, a practical inventory bag to store everything he collects, and all the languages of the world. Takeru's body begins to fade, and we see him in another world, asleep under a tree. He wakes up, looks around, and tries to find a place to live. As he walks through the forest, he sees a city in the distance and decides to head there. He quickly realizes that he has no money, and no one will allow him to stay or eat without it. He remembers the young man's words about gathering and selling materials to earn money. He tries to activate his exploration magic, but nothing happens. Takeru gets frustrated, but then he suspects he might be using the wrong language. When he pronounces the words for exploration magic correctly, the spell works, marking the locations of materials that can be gathered and sold for profit. He collects many flowers and herbs, though most are of a low rank. Then, he picks up a stone and discovers that it is ant waste, and of a very high rank. He deduces that tradable resources appear with different symbols, and he can track them with his exploration magic. He collects all the resources in his bag and heads to the village. Upon arriving at the gates, he meets the guard Marlowe, who welcomes him. Takeru introduces himself and says he has only come to the village to sell some resources. Guard Marlowe opens the gate and tells him they don't have a specialized resource shop, but there is a general store he can visit. Takeru enters the village, finds the store, and goes inside. The store owner asks him what he wants. Takeru approaches him and asks, "Would you buy something like this? An ant waste stone?" The store owner is amazed that Takeru was able to find such a thing and offers him 5 silver coins for it. Takeru asks how much a night at the inn costs. The store owner tells him a night costs 500 ref, and 1 silver coin is worth 1,000 ref. Takeru quickly calculates its value in yen, and is astonished that the stone is worth 50,000 yen. He agrees to the sale. The store owner asks if Takeru has any other resources, and Takeru presents his collection. The store owner is surprised by the quantity Takeru has gathered and offers him a job to collect mithril ore from the eastern mountain. He says he has a map of the mountain and will give him all the information if he agrees. He then offers to buy all the resources Takeru brought for 360,000 ref. Takeru is stunned, as this is equivalent to 3.6 million yen. The store owner warns him that the mountain has monsters that will surely hunt him, but he trusts and relies on Takeru. The scene shifts, and we see Takeru in his room at the inn. A worker enters and brings him water to wash himself and his feet. So he asked the maid about taking a bath. She replied that there was no bath here, and that he had to simply endure it. Shocked, Takeru froze at her words. But then she mentioned she had heard that some mages in distant lands could clean themselves with magic, though none lived in Tormi. Takeru took the water bowl from her, handed over the payment, and after she left, he used his own cleanse magic. To his delight, the spell worked perfectly, washing away the dirt from his body. He felt refreshed, almost reborn. The next day, he headed into the forest to search for valuable resources. First, he found mushrooms and gathered plenty of them. As he wandered deeper, he stumbled upon a skeleton. Fear struck him, but he quickly cast his skill to check the skeleton's status. It once belonged to Belria Fiend, a soldier of the Balkheim Legion. Nearby, Takeru spotted a small pendant. When he picked it up, he realized it was a family keepsake, crafted by the man's mother. On it was a heartfelt message from his sister, thanking him for caring for their father's illness and wishing for his safe return home. Touched, Takeru buried the remains with respect. That night, he rested in the forest, drawing a magic circle around him as a protective barrier from monsters. He set a pot over the fire, adding spices from his old world and wild herbs he had gathered. Finally, he threw in some meat. When the stew was ready, the flavor amazed him. The juices of the meat blended perfectly with the broth. Soon, we learned that this forest is the Whitewood Forest, also known as the Gate of Ancient Dragons, a dangerous place teeming with beasts. An old man had once warned him about this very location. Takeru used light magic to brighten his path as he collected plants, reminding himself, for every action there is a reaction. It's not just monsters here, but countless unseen dangers. Eventually, he noticed his body reeked again and cast cleanse magic once more. As he tried to leave, he suddenly fell into a pit. Reacting quickly, he used flight magic to escape. Inside the pit, however, he discovered valuable raw silver ore and collected as much as he could. Then the ground shook. An earthquake. Determined, he pressed forward and found mithril ore, an extremely rare and magical metal. Overjoyed, Takeru knew its worth, though it was small in size. Suddenly, another quake rumbled. Holding himself steady, he pushed on until he came across a river. The water left him speechless. It was so pure, unlike anything he had ever seen. To him, this was his greatest discovery yet. He wondered if this river had once been blessed or cursed by an ancient dragon that lived here long ago. And then, a thunderous voice echoed, "Who dares disturb my slumber?" Startled, Takeru admitted he only wished to take some water with him. He tried to fill his flask carefully, not wanting to waste a drop. But before he could explain further, the dragon rose from the lake itself, its massive form breaking the silence of the ancient forest. The dragon emerged, annoyed at Takeru, scolding him for never listening to a word he said. Takeru quickly bowed his head, apologizing for entering the dragon's home without permission. "I've bowed to countless people ever since I started working, but I never thought I'd have to bow before a dragon." The dragon laughed mockingly. "You're a man of unshakable spirit." Then he asked for his name. When Takeru introduced himself as a human, the dragon was shocked. "A human? Impossible! That overwhelming magic power pouring from you. It rivals my own!" The dragon revealed his name, Voldios. He then made a request. "I want your power. Perhaps your pure mana can revive my child. The stagnant, polluted mana here prevents the egg from hatching. I won't ask for free. In return, I'll give you this." From the depths of the lake, Voldios produced a magical ore so rare that Takeru's eyes widened in awe. Taking the dragon's egg in his hands, Takeru channeled his magic into it, creating a radiant. Speaking to himself, he thought, "Since it's an egg, I need to keep it warm." Using heat magic, something strange happened. The dragon's eyes gleamed with joy. "Yes, it worked. You're the one who made this possible." Takeru then confessed, "I've only just arrived in this world. I want to see more of it." At that moment, a celestial being appeared before him. "You reckless fool. When dragons appear, people either faint or flee for their lives. But you've broken the rules. I've been shaping this world for hundreds of thousands of years, and in an instant you've spread ripples everywhere. It irritates me. That ridiculous blessing you received, I'll weaken it a little. You wished for a charming companion. Now deal with it." Takeru suddenly awoke from what felt like a dream. Just as the egg hatched, the newborn dragon leapt happily into Takeru's arms. Voldios smiled. "Takeru, give my child a name. He already has a true name, but I want you to grant him a nickname." After thinking hard, Takeru finally said, "Black. Short, simple, and it suits him perfectly." Voldios nodded proudly. "A fine name. It will bring us the love of this vast world." The little dragon, Black, had officially joined Takeru, but Takeru hesitated. "He's just been born. I can't make him follow me into danger." Voldios looked him straight in the eyes. "I entrust him to you. Your power surpasses even mine. Take care of him." As Voldios departed, Takeru looked at the newborn by his side. "Black. From now on, you'll be with me on my journey to gather resources." The little dragon chirped with joy as Takeru cast a cleanse spell on him. And thus, today's episode comes to an end. What adventures await Takeru and Black on their journey? Stay tuned for the next episode of this amazing anime. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss what comes next. A young princess born without magic lost her mother and was left in the hands of a cruel father who despises her and seeks her death. Yet, she holds a power far greater than any spell. The ability to see her tragic fate at the hands of her tyrant father. But will she find a way to escape this dark destiny? Or is her future already sealed? Our episode begins on that thundering night, marking the birth of the little princess, whom her mother named Athanasia, meaning immortality. However, the little girl was born without any magical power. Yet, when her mother kissed her, a magic circle appeared on her forehead. The mother then wept and passed away. The servants quickly gathered because there were orders from His Majesty the Emperor to collect and burn all the possessions of his wife, Diana, found in the palace, leaving no trace. He also commanded them never to mention the name of his newborn daughter in his presence or speak about her, as he had never loved his wife. After several days, we see the servants in the palace next to the little Princess Athanasia, but they do not pay her much attention. We see the little princess, hungry. Then she falls asleep and dreams, entering a magical world filled with many magic circles. She approaches a magic crystal with a book inside. When she approaches the crystal and bites it, the crystal shatters, and the magical book emerges. When she opens it, Athanasia hears her mother's voice telling her, "Take care of yourself, for this is your future." She then sees a part of her future as a young princess, standing in the palace before her father and everyone, being tried for violating a decree and using the black sorcerer to plot the assassination of her father, the Emperor. Athanasia cries intensely and tells her father that this didn't happen and they are wrong. All she ever wanted was her father's love, and she begs him to save her. Her father, the Emperor, tells her she is not his daughter and that he never loved her. He leaves and orders them to imprison her forever. Then we return to reality. Athanasia wakes up from her sleep, crying intensely, and speaks internally, saying, "This cannot be my future." The maid, Lillian, immediately comes, carries her, and tries to calm her down from crying. Princess Athanasia thinks to herself that Lillian is the only one who comforts her. Lillian is the daughter of a count, but was her mother's friend. She abandoned her life in the bosom of a noble family and came to the palace as a maid to look after Athanasia. Were it not for her, she would have been left to die of hunger. She then says, "I am just an infant princess, yet I know my future. Will anyone believe me?" All she knows now is that this is a world of magic, and every noble can use magic. According to the legend, there is a tower that is the source of all magic, where a great sorcerer resides, who is said to be able to easily wipe out the empire. But there is one who possesses even more astonishing magical powers: the Emperor, her father. However, Athanasia sees him as an unjust emperor, for he exiled and imprisoned her in her future dream for a crime she did not commit. Athanasia tries to sleep again but wakes up crying because she sees the same dream and absolutely does not want that to be her future. After 3 years pass, we see the servants cleaning the palace, and a new maid is talking to one of the other maids. She tells her that she didn't expect the Ruby Palace to be so lively, and she also heard that the atmosphere here is always familial. She knows she came to the palace to look after the princess, and heard she is a very lovely princess and is eager to meet her. Then we see Princess Athanasia in her room, surrounded by many books. She looks out the window and talks to the servants, asking them where they are going. The maid tells her that the flowers have bloomed beautifully, so they are going to take care of them. The princess gets excited and goes with them to help. The princess then puts on work clothes and helps them with the decorations. While walking through the palace, she sees the new maid standing by one of the palace room doors, seemingly looking for something. Athanasia approaches her and asks what she is doing. The maid nervously tells her she is new and got lost in the palace. She then looks at Athanasia and mistakes her for the gardener's daughter, not knowing she is Princess Athanasia. Athanasia asks her where she wants to go. The maid tells her she wants to go to a place full of shiny gold. Athanasia suggests going to the place where golden wheat, golden bread, or sunflowers are. The maid gets angry and tells her she doesn't mean that. She means expensive, glittering things. Athanasia tells her that precious things are kept in places people cannot see and asks her to follow her. They then arrive at the kitchen and stand outside. The maid tells her, "Are you making fun of me, little girl? Does it make sense to put valuable things in the kitchen?" Athanasia tells her that the Ruby Palace has been abandoned for years, so even if there were valuable things, they would have been taken out long ago. The maid then asks about the Emperor. Athanasia tells her that His Majesty is too busy to care about them. Then they see the maid Hannah coming out with a plate of sweets. When the new maid sees it, her eyes sparkle because the plate is decorated with genuine, real gemstones. She asks Athanasia how she can get into the kitchen. Athanasia tells her to wait a moment, then goes to the maid Hannah and asks to eat some of the sweets. Hannah agrees. Just as she is about to give her the sweets, the maid Cecia approaches and tells Hannah that she shouldn't give Princess Athanasia things without permission. Athanasia approaches Cecia and begs her. Maid Cecia is softened by her cuteness and gives her the entire plate of sweets, telling her not to tell Lillian about it. Athanasia then takes the sweets and goes with the new maid to the kitchen. When the maid sees the golden plates and spoons, her eyes gleam and she intends to steal them. She collects many golden items, extracts the gemstones from the plates, and packs them. However, Princess Athanasia notices this, takes the stolen items from her, and tells her that all of it belongs to her. The maid takes a knife, approaches Athanasia, and chases her. The princess immediately tries to escape, then unhooks the chandelier's rope, causing it to fall onto the thieving maid. Then we see many servants heading towards the kitchen to check on the little princess. The guards take the thief and leave. At night, we see the maid Lillian brushing the little princess's hair. She tells her she was very worried about her today because of that thieving maid. The princess tells her she is fine, gives her a flower, and thanks her. It is then time for bed. The princess sleeps in her bed, and the maid Lillian leaves the room. Then we see the princess talking to herself and saying, "I'm glad you are safe, Lillian. This is thanks to the prophetic dream I saw. If I hadn't done that today, Lillian would have caught that maid, and the thief would have stabbed her in the stomach, and Lillian would have died." She then says, "My name is Athanasia, the magical princess who cannot use magic. But I have a secret. I can see my own future. As for my father, he never loves me, and I believe this terrible dream of mine is probably my fate. But I do not intend to simply accept it like this." Then we move to His Majesty, the Emperor's palace. A guard enters his room with correspondence. The guard informs him that, according to the knight's reports, a thief entered the Ruby Palace and attacked the little princess, but she managed to handle the situation herself and the thief was captured. The Emperor gets angry and tells him he does not want to know those details. Then we shift the scene to that strange man waking up from his sleep and saying, "Who is this who defies the fate of the Obelian Empire?" He then looks towards the palace. And thus ends our first episode of this captivating story. To follow more events and developments, please subscribe to the channel and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Our second episode. In a faraway magical land lived a poor princess. The princess's mother died shortly after giving birth, and her father, who disliked and despised her, didn't want to see her again. The princess grew up without the Emperor's love for a long time, living alone, desperate, and unhappy. When she turned 9, she met her father for the first time. She told herself, "Perhaps this person is my only family." To gain her father's love, she did her utmost. When she turned 14, at her first ball, her hopes were shattered. The truth was that the Emperor had another daughter, dazzling and beautiful, named Jeanette, who resembled a beautiful angel. In an instant, She captured everyone's hearts and love. Honestly, guys, she is lovable. I loved her immediately when I saw her, including her father's love, of course. He loved her very much and spoiled her. As for our princess, she wanted to gain her father's love, so the poor princess reached out her hands with dark magic. In the end, her father exiled her, and her life ended. Athanasia then closes the book, crying, and says, "This is truly unfair, a very miserable ending. I am sure that's me." The scene shifts to the servants, perhaps in the royal palace, while Athanasia watches the events from afar. Due to the thief incident, the number of people in the kitchen has increased. Now it will be very difficult to enter. She says, "I won't let something like this make me lose my real hope of collecting money." She loves gold very much, or shiny things. She took many golden dolls. At that moment, she enters and addresses the servants. "Good evening. I'd like to eat some chocolate, please." All the girls are astonished and very happy that she is asking for something. Indeed, within a few minutes, they prepare the chocolate for her. Everyone was happy with her presence. She is a pretty and charming girl. The scene shifts to Athanasia as she is eating the sweets next to the fountain, talking to herself about her dream boy. "Perhaps I will meet him when I turn 19, or maybe I will meet him before that. I think my luck will be great." Then she remembers Lillian and says, "I will take Lillian with me. I will never leave her." At that moment, chocolate falls on her, soiling her clothes. She decided to wash herself in the fountain, but unfortunately she almost fell. She looks at her reflection in the water and remembers people's words when they told her she strongly resembled her mother, but her eyes resembled her father's. However, in terms of magical powers, she unfortunately did not possess any. Her eyes are very distinct, but in reality, as Athanasia says, there is another girl named Jeanette who possesses those eyes. Then she says, "This doesn't mean anything to me. I must escape once I collect the money. When I collect the money, I will escape immediately." She had a pouch of coins, so she decided to hide it in the forest because the front guard at the palace is very strict. She kept walking and walking until she reached this place and wondered, "This is not the Ruby Palace. So what is this place?" She approached it more and more and entered, finding it completely empty. She remembers hearing some maids saying, "We will strengthen the guard well, and we will search the princess's room specifically." That's why she quickly ran under her bed, took her money, and went to the forest to hide it. But after days, she returns again to retrieve it. She searches for it left and right. At that moment, she finds that a squirrel has taken it out. She told him, "Wait, little squirrel!" But he didn't listen and ran quickly. Here, she decided to look for a peanut for him so he would leave her jewels and eat the peanut. Indeed, the plan was successful. This means there is no safe place in the forest now. She thinks and says, "I must find a safer place." Then she remembers that abandoned place, so she goes there directly. She walks around it and finds no one. How can this towering place be without shelter and no one knows it? Not only that, but she kept walking and walking until she reached the main square. She finds statues, perhaps of pure gold. But here, the big surprise happens. She turns around and finds two tall figures. One says, "Since when has this little insect been in our palace?" But this person deduces that her eyes are exactly the same as his. She said to him, "Father?" But we don't know now if it is her father or not. She says, "What's the story exactly? Is this my father? Or is this the Devil King's palace? Or did I come to the wrong place? Where exactly do I get out of here now? I want to escape quickly." That man tries to remember and remembers a girl who was indeed crying. He remembers her and tells her, "You are Athanasia." Then he remembers what happened when the servants were sitting and said she was a good girl named Athanasia, and this is what her mother named her. He told her, "You've grown so much." Then he grabs her cheeks and pinches them a few times, then tells a servant, "Bring tea immediately." She tries to escape because she does not want to drink tea with him, but he catches her quickly. Then her jewels fall on the floor. After that, they enter the palace, and the sitting was very bad. Athanasia says, "What a boring sitting this is. Does he want me to talk or say something? How long will I sit here?" He talks to her and says, "Are you always silent? Can't you talk? Come on, talk." "I won't do anything to you." She finally speaks, and he hears her voice after a session of silence. He brings her cake and food, but she was very shy. A servant enters again, but he tells him to go outside. Then he talks to her about himself, that he is the emperor who lived in that land, causing corruption, burning many things, and misleading people, but now he is not as he was before. He told her, "Come on, drink the tea and eat the food." She was nervous and said, "What do I call him? What should I say to him? Should I call him father?" Then she decides to call him by that name. Claude looked at her and did not respond. So Athanasia got nervous because she specifically called him Papa. She is afraid he will destroy her, as she thinks he will exile her immediately, whereas she could have called him Your Majesty the Emperor, like any ordinary person. After that, we go to the head maid, who is talking with the rest of the girls, telling them they must search everywhere for the princess. Suddenly, the princess appears before them, running towards them and crying. The head maid Lillian embraces her and asks her where she was, as she was extremely worried about her. Then she speaks to the king's guard and asks him why he is with the princess. He informed her that the king told him he would summon his daughter again. Athanasia cries because she hates this and does not want to go to see him again. He was very cruel before. She doesn't know what he is trying to do, as he decided he will oversee the princess from now on. But she will not let him tempt her with sweets. After that, Athanasia goes with the head maid Lillian to her father, the emperor. The emperor welcomes her and informs her that a long time has passed since they last met. She replies that he is indeed right, as she had the honor of meeting him last time 5 years ago. The emperor is surprised that she remembers that. Before he can finish his sentence, Athanasia feels extremely nervous, to the point she feels like vomiting. Her father is the emperor of the Obelian Empire, and everyone says he is a great man, but she knows he is cruel and greatly merciful, a term she uses internally. After that, the emperor speaks and says that he was unable to take care of her due to his preoccupation with government affairs, as they warn Lillian about her health and vitality. Athanasia understands that he is lying. The issue is not that he could not take care of her as he claims. If he had wanted to, her life would have been enjoyable. She wants him to continue leaving her alone and let her return immediately. The emperor then continues, informing Lillian that he heard everything about the incident at the Ruby Palace. From now on, he will supervise the princess, and she will receive treatment befitting a princess. The scene shifts to the staff of maids, where Hannah tells her friend Cecia that she never imagined the king would come to the Ruby Palace. They are now sure that the princess is also overjoyed. Then we see the emperor sitting with the princess at a table in the garden having breakfast. The princess is still nervous and says to herself that she was supposed to avoid her father and live quietly. After all, the disaster in her future was caused by meeting her father. As long as she never meets him, she can change her future. Nevertheless, this is very frustrating. The maids then place many sweets on the table. The princess is impressed by this and thinks that this is the appropriate treatment for a princess. She says to herself that her father was very cold to her before. She does not know what he is trying to do with her. Could it be poisoned? Then she decides that she will never let this cake tempt her. The emperor asks her why she is not eating, saying he feels she thinks the sweets are poisoned. The princess is shocked that he might be able to read her thoughts. She tells him that she loves cake, but Lillian tells her that she shouldn't eat too many sweets, or she will get cavities. The emperor is surprised because she ate some yesterday, but she cannot hold herself back any longer. She eats the cake and finds it very delicious. There is nothing this delicious. She cannot believe she let down her guard because of a small cake like this. Then she decides to eat the entire cake, as it would be wasteful to leave any piece of it. At that moment, the servants and the emperor's guard watch her from afar. They are happy because they seem to have relaxed a little. The emperor listens to his daughter and asks her to join him for tea every day. Thus began the life of Ati, in which she saw her father every day, although she does not know why he suddenly started playing the role of a happy family with her. This makes her very nervous, but every now and then, something nice happens. The princess always tries to master things, but this makes her more nervous. She tries to learn many things for her father, and whenever she makes a mistake, she thinks it's over for her. But for some reason, her father does not seem to intend to criticize her. Maybe he regrets what happened and is trying to be nice to her, but she believes she is not afraid of her father, as she was before. Athanasia then falls asleep. In the morning, Athanasia gets ready to go out for a stroll in the imperial lands, as she heard there were flowers in the lake. She goes out to her father happy and strolls through the garden very happy. She picked many flowers and runs and plays in the garden with joy. Her father arrives and tells her that he will show her the way, as he will take her with him in the boat. Lillian informed him that the princess is not comfortable with water yet. The princess reassures her and asks her not to worry, as she must do what her father dictates. The emperor then says that he will stay with her. So why is she worried? Or does she hate the idea? The princess replies that she did not mean that at all, and she wants to go with him anywhere. Indeed, the princess rides with her father alone in the boat. The princess is very scared when they are alone. He stares at her all this time. She does not know what she should say. She is so nervous that she can barely breathe. The emperor asks her what she is thinking about. The princess becomes more nervous and tells him that the weather is beautiful and the lake is beautiful. Then she tells him that his hair is very shiny and beautiful. She admits that his hair is indeed beautiful. Every time she sees something golden, she thinks of everything golden. The emperor understands that she loves very shiny things. Then he tells her that she has her jewels, and the day should come for her to take them. The princess says that time passes slowly, and the wind carries the scent of flowers, which is a very pleasant feeling. Thinking about it now, she does not know how they are moving. They are not rowing with anything, yet the boat is moving. She thinks this might be using her father's magic. Then she looks at his clear blue eyes, which are like a blue sapphire. She then wonders to herself if her father would have loved her if she could use magic. Then the princess sees the blue lotus flower. She is impressed by its beauty and fragrant scent. We see Ati very impressed by the look of the flowers and wants to touch them and take this flower. But she falls into the sea. Something very strong grabs her leg, and she calls for help from her father, but he does nothing for her. Then she remembers what she dreamed, that she violated the decree and used black magic and will spend the rest of her life in prison. Then she said words that meant this was supposed to be her destiny all along. Despite that, she held on to a little hope. She had wished he would accept her as his daughter. Finally, her father comes and rescues her. After that, Ati wakes up with Lillian by her side to check on her. When Ati sees that her father rescued her, he then uses his magic and dries Ati, and she is very happy that her father is doing everything for her. Then the emperor asks Felix to teach her how to swim tomorrow. It won't be a long story if my daughter drowns. After that, they return to the Ruby Palace, exhausted from the shock, and the cold made me bedridden, but I keep thinking about what happened that day. Then Lillian tells her that this flower is a dream lotus. It creates an illusion to lure living beings. Its purpose is purely for decoration. As long as there aren't many of them, it's not dangerous. But if you don't possess magical powers, you will be attracted by its allure. Ati told her, the problem is that I am very weak. But I don't want to drink any more of this medicine because it is too bitter. Lillian informs her that she must take it, or she will not recover. At night, we see Ati's father by the lake. Then this girl appears, saying to him, "You came to see me." He tells her that emotions forget such things long ago, but I don't seem to hate that girl. Many hands surround Ati's father. Then we see Felix very angry and wanting to help the king, saying, "May a bright light illuminate your path someday." Then Ati's father asks something of him. After that, we see Cecia rushing into Ati, saying that many maids are coming here to serve her. Ati is surprised when she sees them. Then Felix comes and tells her, "I have been assigned to be your personal guard. I look forward to serving you." Thus ends today's episode of this story. Wait for us in the upcoming episodes. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. She awakens after 200 years, only to find herself in the body of a man. Against all odds, she becomes the most powerful leader in the land and wages a desperate war against the Demon King himself. What is her story from the beginning? Follow the tale to the very end to uncover the truth. The anime begins amidst utter chaos on a battlefield littered with fallen bodies. We are introduced to Lufa's Mafal, who is about to be defeated by a group of people. However, she responds that it will be their end, grabs one by the face and smashes his face against several rocks, smashing his head against the mountain. An enemy fires with a bow and arrow, but she manages to block it. Suddenly, a wolf appears before her and strikes, but Lufus easily blocks it and counterattacks with an impressive flurry of attacks, knocking the animal away. Even after defeating several opponents, others continue to appear. She takes a blow to the face and is thrown away, but quickly reverses the situation, throwing the man against the rocks. Then several weapons appear behind her and are fired at her, but Lufus manages to dodge them. Another hero appears behind her and hits her with a punch, but she realizes it's just water, the result of the protection of a wizard assisting his companions as she receives the attack. She pierces the man's chest, but he claims he's not finished yet. She is surprised to realize he has a climax ability. As she tries to pull her arm from the enemy's body, he grabs her and, along with his allies, manages to pin her to the ground. Lufus, however, begins to laugh at the situation. After being defeated, she admits that perhaps they are all capable of defeating the Demon Lord. The scene then cuts to a young man at the computer, realizing that his Lofa resisted until the end. On the forum, players praise the game highly. Suddenly, the goddess of creation, Aloveness, appears. The young man recognizes that she is the goddess responsible for creating the world of Endgate and wonders if this is an official message from the company. At this point, Lufus is already as important a boss as the Demon King himself. The boy had reached a level impossible for even the developer to ignore. Unable to understand what his role would be, he decides to accept. Upon waking, confused, he notices several people in front of him and believes he's being pranked. Looking down, he notices he's transformed into the character from his favorite game with a body full of delicate feminine features. He always thought that if he were a girl, he'd want to be beautiful, which is why he created his character that way. Now he wonders if he's dreaming or if he's actually entered the game. When he tries to speak to others, simply raising his voice causes them all to fall to the ground due to the crushing pressure of his racial ability. Pressure tries to control this intimidation, but even after some time, people still suffer its effects. Finally, he manages to defuse the situation. Although the tension remains, those present begin to fear her. But Hufflepuff simply wants to understand how she ended up there. An elf, however, faints before her. He soon discovers that 200 years have passed since she was sealed. The Demon King still lives, and to defeat him, they tried to summon a hero through the hitch, but it was she who emerged. The boy then realizes he's actually inside the game, now playing a girl. Despite his surprise, he feels joy at being able to live in the world he loved so much. However, he understands that the priority isn't acting like a fan, but deciding what to do in this new reality. Seeing everyone in shock, he decides to leave immediately. She explains that she has no intention of interfering in the world. Despite her defeat, the battle brought her satisfaction. She is no longer Hufflepuff the Conqueror, but a young woman whose hopes have been dashed. When asked where she would go, she replies only that she wants to see the current world and appreciate its form. She asks them to forget about her and suggests they perform another hero summoning. As she takes flight, she marvels at the sensation of wearing real wings and contemplates the world of Endgate online from a new perspective. For any gamer, there is nothing more fun than exploring their favorite game as their own creation. As he advances, he spots something gigantic and realizes it still exists. You now know where to go first. It is then explained that line hookups set in the world of Misgar, a medieval fantasy online RPG. Its biggest draw is the war system, a PvP in which players represent nations and the victors conquer the defeated. Another major highlight is the narrative which adapts the player's actions to the game's official story. He had transformed Lofa into the strongest character. He leveled up, acquired items, and remained the best player. For the first time in history, he managed to unify Misgar, which was widely celebrated in the narrative, making Lufus a semi-official character. However, a game with only one powerful ruler would end up being boring. So he and other high-level players divided their forces between the Conqueror's army, Lufus, and the Light's army, made up of heroes. They then organized the greatest battle ever recorded, bypassing even the official final boss. In the end, Lufus was defeated and sealed in subspace. Now back in the world, she contemplates her base, the Maffa Hill Tower of Heaven. Upon entering, she realizes it's not as well preserved as she imagined, but its essence remains. She feels nostalgic as she remembers when her friends would gather there to talk, drink, and have fun. Suddenly, Dina appears, a girl who has waited 200 years for Luff's return. When questioned, she introduces herself as the advisor. The player remembers creating her as a simple scenario NPC tasked with being Luff's advisor, and is shocked to realize she has gained consciousness and waited all this time. Luff apologizes for forgetting her and promises not to repeat the mistake. She explains that she was summoned by humans, and Dina imagines they must have been shocked. She then reveals that to the west lies the nation of Levitane, which had prepared to summon a hero. Lufus asks for more details about what happened after her departure. She discovers that the heroes who defeated her became known as the 7 heroes, each founding their own nation. Of the 7, 4 have already died of old age, leaving only 3 remaining belonging to long-lived races. She asks if they would also be players, but Dina explains that the Demon King is still alive and has defeated the 7 heroes. U-12 stars still exist. Officially, Khaled 12 celestial stars of conquest were extremely rare monsters that Lufus managed to recruit, granting the 12 most powerful this prestigious title. At the time, I thought an important leader should have something like the classic 4 generals. I'd like to know how they are doing. The girl knows the whereabouts of 6. Of these, 2 joined the Demon King's army to seek revenge against the humans who defeated her. Lufus knows her choice led everything to this, but she considers it quite a regrettable decision. They must be given a strong warning. Hufflepuff finds all this quite amusing and needs to see the current state of the world for himself. He also needs to verify whether the 3 heroes are players like himself. So Hufflepuff decides to set out on a journey to gather the 12 stars. Stopping those acting foolishly is his responsibility. Dina locates and informs them that the closest one to them is Spell. One of the 7 heroes is also located there. Ares has tried several times to invade Spellal and continues to do so to this day. Hufflepuff already knows where he should go, but the girl asks him to wait a bit as they don't have a penny. Hufflepuff decides to go anyway, but she insists he not do it carelessly as many people know his face. So Hufflepuff dons a hood so he can walk around town but still attract attention. Looking inside the guild, they both stare, and Lufus remembers when he founded that nation. Looking at the quests, Dina suggests looking for cats, but Lufus refuses as he's not good at that kind of task. Just ahead, he notices the presence of orcs. It's explained that when defeated, these creatures have a 3% chance of dropping an item that increases maximum HP. Upon entering the forest, Lufus notices a group of orcs standing right at the entrance. She creates a sword and destroys them with ease. However, she is surrounded by several orcs, but she still eliminates them all effortlessly, cutting off their heads as if they were nothing. The orc leader becomes enraged and launches several blows, but Lufus dodges them all and appears before him. Simply by touching the monster, she manages to destroy its head, leaving Dina in shock.